Welcome to this lesson. In this lesson, I will show you how to write binary search with JavaScript, and you will understand everything about it in this tutorial. Now, we have this array now. You can see that the array is not complete, although it is sorted. The numbers are sorted, but some numbers are missing. So it is hard to search for a certain number in it since some numbers are missing. If no number is missing, then it is easy to search for the exact number. But since some numbers are missing, it will be hard to know the location or the index of the number. So in that case, we have to use binary search to look for it so that it will be faster than searching it linearly. And binary search is all about dividing the array into two equal parts and check whether the number is around here. If it is around here, then it will create another midpoint, right? And it will search around that side. And if it is below the number at the midpoint, it will create another midpoint to look for the number downward. And I will show you how it is done. So let's get started. The first thing we are going to do is to know the starting point, right? In this array, the starting point of the index of this array will be 0, which is the first item, and the endpoint will be numbers dot length minus 1, right? That is the length of the array. Then let's just say let index it is undefined yet. Let us now do for loop. We now set the value of index to 0, and we now check if index is less than the length of the numbers array, and if it is less, we are adding 1 to the index so that the loop will continue moving and moving and moving. So now let's calculate the midpoint. Binary search is always dividing an array into two equal parts. So you divide this into two equal parts by knowing the number at the middle. You calculate the midpoint, then you check if the number at the midpoint is greater than what we are searching. If it is less than what we are searching for, then it means we are going to search upward here. But if it is greater than what we are searching for, then we are going to search downward here. So let's calculate the midpoint. Const midpoint is equals to maths.floor. This one is to round a number that has maybe a floating point number into an integer, and that is what we want to do like this. So let's just do start. We put it in parentheses so that we'll be sure we are using normal calculation. Start plus end divided by 2. So we divide them by 2 here. So this is it. We divide them by 2. Then we use if statement to see if the index at the midpoint to get a particular item from this array, will it be equals to what we are searching for? That is what we want to do here. What we are doing here is if the search term is equals to the number at the midpoint, then we are going to say the number is found and log it. You just do console.log found, and we log the number. So let's just use this one to get the number and log it. So this one will log the number like this. So we are logging the number like that, and then we now want to check what if the number we are searching for is greater than the number at the midpoint. What will happen? This is what will happen. Search term greater than the number at the midpoint. It is greater than the number. It means that let's say 7 is the number at the midpoint. Then what we are searching for is greater than 7, right? Then we are going to search upward here. So how do we do that? We cannot use 7 again. Why? Because we have checked here that if the number at the midpoint is equals to what we are looking for, then it should return it. But it doesn't return it. Then it means that number 7 can never be the number again, because we have checked it before, because it is the number at the midpoint and it can never be it again. Then we have to move to this one to be the start of another array, right? That is why we now do this here. We now say start is now going to be midpoint plus 1. By the time we add 1 to midpoint, then the beginning of the new array we want to divide into 2 will now be 8, right? Because this one will pick the index of this one is the index of this, then it will pick this, for example. So that is how we get there. And if we now do if search time is less than the number at the midpoint, then what we do here, we now say the end will start with midpoint. So if that number we are searching for is lesser than the number at the midpoint, it means we will search downward here. But we have picked 7 already and we are sure it is not the number. Then we have to subtract it from what we are going to use, and that is why we subtract 1 from here. So the index will be reduced and then by 1, and then it will move to this one. Then we will search from there again. So you can see that by the time this one is executed, then it will go back up again, calculate another midpoint, come here, check it whether it is found. If it's not found, it will check whether the search time is greater than the number at the midpoint, then create another beginning of an array and make sure that the previous number at the midpoint is not part of it. That's what this one is doing. It then moves on to this, and if the search time is less than the number at the midpoint, then it will search down and make sure the number at the midpoint is not part of the number we are going to use to create another array. Why are we just setting end alone here? Because by the time we set 5 as the end, 1 is still the beginning, right? And that's why we don't change the start. And in this case, we change the only start alone, because by the time we know 7 already, we want to start again. So this one will be the start and this one is still the last. Then we don't change it, and they will be used to compute another midpoint. So this one should be working. Let's see if there is no error. It should be working. Okay, I think there's okay, found. Yes, it works. So we found it 4. So let's check another number so that we'll be sure whether it's working or not. Let's say 7. You see, found. Can you see that? Yes, it is working. It is working. We have found 7, and let's check for another number. Let's check for 10. Boom, we found 10. So let's check for something that is not in the array. You get that? We should have defined something that say if it is lesser than the first item, which is the start, and if it is greater than the last item, which is the end, the last item, which is the end, then it should not run anything. Boom! You can see nothing happens. You see that because it's not part of the array. And that is it. That is how to deal with binary search algorithm. That is how to understand it. Let me explain it once again so that you will truly understand it. So, this is the number where we want to search a particular number, which is this one here. We are searching for 4, for example, and we pick the first item. We use the index of the first item, which is 0, to pick it, right? And the last item, which is 10, we use the index of that last item to pick it, which is what? Numbers.length minus 1, right? That is the last number. So we declare index and we don't define anything. Then we assign 0 to it here, and we check whether index is less than the length of the array. Then if it is, then we add +1 to the index until it is no longer less than the length of the array. So by the time we get here, we use the start and the end to compute the midpoint. And we know that the midpoint may be a floating number, like to be maybe 4.5, 6.5, and we don't want that. We want to round it down, and that is the work of math.floor. You see that? Then we move on here. We check the search term that we are searching for, if it is equals to the number at the midpoint, because this midpoint is an index, and we use it to pick an item at the midpoint. So by the time it picks it, if it is equals to what we are searching for, we return that we have found it, right? But if it is not equal to it, we check for another thing. We check whether the number is greater than the number at the midpoint. If it is greater than the number at the midpoint, then we have to start another array like this. You can just see we want to start another array like this. You just see from what we are doing now, we start another array from, let's say, if the midpoint is greater than 7. So we know that 7 cannot be the number again because it is the number at the midpoint. Then we add 1 to it so that the index will move to this one. Then we'll start the array from 8, 9, and 10. So that is what we do here. You see that by doing this, the array will start from here. But in case the search term is lesser than the number at the midpoint, then we have to search downward. Then we want to make sure that 7, which is the number at the midpoint, is not part of what we are using again. Then we subtract 1 from the midpoint. So array will now, the last now will not be 10 again. It will now be 5, and it will be 5, 4, 2, and 1. You see that? So that is what we do. So it will create another array and try to find the number in it. It will now be dividing it into 2 like that until it finds the number. And that's what this one does. So that's it. And for the last time, let's search for 1 and see if it works. Hooray! Yes, it works. And that is the end of this tutorial. And see you another time. Bye for now.
Hey! Have you been struggling to learn and build projects with JavaScript? Oh no, you too can code. People like you have been struggling to understand and build projects with JavaScript because you have been learning with the wrong resources and make everything so difficult to learn. And there is nobody to be there for you anytime you are stuck. That is why I have put together my long experience of working with JavaScript, and I also took a year of my life to provide solutions to the problem beginners always face in learning and building projects with JavaScript. Now you can learn with a tested and trusted program that makes use of simple examples and amazing illustrations that make everything so easy to learn. And my team and I will always guide you, mentor you, and always be there for you anytime you are stuck. So, what are you waiting for? Click the link in this post right now to start learning JavaScript the easy way. I will teach you JavaScript to be unstoppable. See you soon.